Now, our cameraman Ben is a local. He's a good lad. He doesn't get many things right, but I have to say, Nas, he's picked a pretty good spot for us, hasn't he?
You're right about the view, not about the cameraman. He's not a great lad. The view is top drawer, one of the best in the world. I love Sydney, absolutely love this place.
You spent a bit of time here, haven't you, both as a commentator and as a player?
Yeah.
Internationally and sort of club cricket?
We won a test match here as captain. One of the few test matches we won out here is when Michael Vaughan got those runs a long time ago. Love broadcasting here. My grade cricket career wasn't that good here. I think I got more parking tickets than runs, because if you park your vehicle the wrong way around, if you're parking it against the traffic, you get a fine, and no one told me that until the end of the season. I couldn't work out why every time I got back to my car after getting 6 for Petersham, I'd have a parking ticket as well.
It's a great experience though, isn't it, coming and playing club cricket out here? Would you recommend it to youngsters? Because it's sort of more like academies now, and they seem to stay at home a lot, and it's nets and indoor schools, but to come out here, sort of live on your own, fend for yourself and play this sort of cricket, do you recommend it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things have changed. You know, the world has changed, cricketing world, in as much as, well, for the last few years you couldn't have done anyway because of COVID. You couldn't come in and out of this place. Even in Australia, you couldn't move around the States. But even before that, and more recently, people go off and play franchise cricket, and there's so many other opportunities to go and play cricket around the world. But from our area, I know you did Perth, I did Sydney and Adelaide, not just for the cricket, but you find out so much about yourself and how you have to fend for yourself. I'd come out of university, I had played a few games for England, but you have to look after yourself, basically. You have to get to nets, you have to get to the game. You know,
pay your parking tickets.
Pay your parking tickets, do your own washing of your whites, not your mum doesn't do it for you anymore. So I love playing grade cricket. It's really tough. You'd be playing here and you'd be playing against Glenn McGrath and Michael Slater and, you know, some of the greats of the game that went on to be greats of the game. It was tough cricket.
Now you're on duty tonight for Pakistan's game with South Africa. South Africa win that one and they are through, and it is just touched on it, one of the great cricket venues, isn't it?
It is. If you ask me, three venues you want a day-night game, possibly Lords, but the other two, Cape Town is always a great day-night venue. Just looks magnificent with Table Mountain lit up in the background, and the SCG, the old pavilion, the members pavilion with the green roofs. And if it's a nice evening, there's a few clouds and it's a bit cool today, but it's one of the great venues for day-night cricket. So a T20 at the SCG, and two very, very good sides. Pakistan have struggled a bit. They've lost a couple of close games, but two very good bowling attacks.
What have you made of South Africa then?
Well, everyone was sort of not writing them off, but not mentioning them, and a few of us had them as the dark horses. Because of the batting lineup they've got. They've got batters in nick like Riley Rousseau and Quinton de Kock. David Miller has been in fabulous nick for a while now. But the bowling attack, in the conditions, in the weather that we've had, and the rain and the cloud and the pitches have done a bit. When you've got Kagiso Rabada, you know, you've got that bowling attack that keeps coming in you, that seam attack. Their problem is who to leave out. You know, they leave out Tabriz Shamsi at times, and he's one of their best white ball bowlers. So they've got all bases covered in the bowling attack.
The fast bowling in the World Cup in general has been quite eye-catching, hasn't it? What have you made of it?
I think it's been brilliant because of the conditions. I've enjoyed the fact that bowlers have had their way a little bit. It's not just put your stumps in and go and smash 200 and 200 plays 201 and the bowlers are like bowling machines, thanks for coming. I think actually you're seeing in the skills. I've loved some of the slow-mos we've done and the wrist positions and the seam positions and the pace as well. You know, Mark Wood touching 95 mile an hour. He's really let him go. But every side, and the left armers as well. We've got a couple of good ones tonight, and all sides, England included, Sam Curran. You know, the way he's bowled at the death of an innings. I've loved seeing bowling much more in this World Cup.
How impressed were you with England the other day at the Gabba?
Very impressed. I was very impressed with the captain. You know, what I've enjoyed about here is how you've had to adapt to conditions and different venues. And as a captain, we get it as broadcasters. You will get so much information now from statisticians, from Crick Viz, from Benedict, from people at the ground dimensions, and you're trying to match ups. And you're trying to put all that into the equation, but also that gut feel as a captain. And I think that's the key balance now as an international T20 captain, is having that balance between what the stats tell you and what history tells you and what's right in front of you and what you see. And I think that's what they got wrong going from Perth to Melbourne. Not wrong, just didn't quite get it right. Perth to Melbourne, they continued to bowl in Melbourne to Ireland, had they had done in Perth to Afghanistan, banging it in halfway down, bouncers that bounced out Afghanistan. Against Ireland, when it was swinging round corners, They needed to have that gut feel and adapt to conditions that were right there in front of them, and they didn't do that quick enough. What I liked about Brisbane was that Buttler and the team, whatever the stats were, he looked down at that pitch, used. We're going to have a bat on here.
He was proactive as well, wasn't he?
He was. He had a great game. You know, it was his 100th T20 international. He went past Owen Morgan as the leading run getter for England in T20s. And in the field, he was proactive. He did use his matchups. I think he said in the press conference after, actually, he was uncertain if he was going to open the bowling with Moeen Ali. But once he'd batted on it, and again, that gut feel that this one's spinning, this is not your usual Gabba one-day pitch, this one's looking a little bit tired now, he opened with Moeen Ali. And then for every batter, Williamson then comes in. He'll know the stats on Williamson, that he's been struggling recently against spin. His strike rate's down. 2 right-handers in. Finn Allen has struggled a little bit against spin. He gets Adil Rashid on. And then halfway through the innings, when the wheels were coming off a little bit, who does he go to when he needs a wicket? Mark Wood comes in. Neesham's looking to tee off. That over that Wood bowl was brilliant, and then Curran finished it off. Buttler had his best day as an England white ball captain.
Well, it's still with him as the batsman as well as Alex Hales, because common lynches have been written about England's top order struggles, and it wasn't that long ago that Jos Buttler was smashing Australia all round the park. Are they trying to find fault all the time? Because it was only 2 games.
Yeah, it's just the way of the world, really, because it's a tournament, and 2 games in a tournament could be 2/5 of the tournament, so it's quite a big chunk on it if you get knocked out. But over the grand scheme of a year or even a winter, you're right. You know, Buttler didn't play in Pakistan, and he had a great series against Australia. He smashed it, everyone. It's been hard at the top of the order. You know, Rohit and Rahul, I know Rahul got some last night. They've struggled.
Finch
has struggled. Babar Azam has struggled. There's a lot of the openers. Bavuma's struggled. So a lot of the openers have struggled because the ball has been moving around. And like we said earlier, the quality of bowlers at the top of the order has put them under pressure. So he played brilliantly, Buttler. Hale set it off. I think England, when the pitches are, even that Gabba pitch that had been used, when it's got good pace and carrying, it's a good pitch. I would be so fearful of this England batting lineup as an opposition captain, because Hales goes at you hard, and then when Hales got out, Buttler himself goes at you. And I thought they were really good and proactive with their batting lineup. Once you're off to that flyer, then they swapped it around with Livingston and Moeen Ali coming in, and Milan slid down the order.
What was the more difficult catch? The one Moeen Ali dropped, or the one that you dropped off Graham Smith?
Oh, my one, Graham Smith wobbled on me, and then he cost England 200 runs in a test match. So, Mo's, I know you're doing a feature of bowling with Mo or something tomorrow, 10-pin, was it not 10-pin bowling?
No,
lawn green bowling or whatever. Make sure he doesn't.
You're coming to umpire with a silly hat and those trousers and all that.
So make sure he doesn't drop that. That would be my first gag with him. I think he said in the paper that even his little one had a little go at him on the phone the other day. Why didn't you catch that, Dad? So it's the sort of catch we mentioned the other day, like Herschel Gibbs, Steve Waugh in the World Cup, when Steve Waugh allegedly said, Herschel, you've just dropped the World Cup. Luckily, England went on to win that game, because they lost that, and Mo's catch will be remembered for a long time. Now it's a little bit of a joke in the dressing room.
This Glenn Phillips gives it a touch, doesn't he?
He does. He gives it. I think only Liam Livingstone has hit more T26s than him in the last couple of years. The other thing is, he's got a yard on you in the field. I tell you, he is seriously
I thought
quick.
MS Dhoni was the fastest man I've ever seen in pads, but I've changed my mind. It's him.
He's seriously quick, and I wouldn't want to be, even some of New Zealand, a very strong, fit side, and even some of their batters were struggling to keep up with him. So that's a pretty good combination. If you can belt it for 6 when you want to, and when you don't, and you just knock it into a gap and run 2, you're doing well to keep him quiet. They will be there or thereabouts by the end of this tournament.
England have destiny in their own hands, pretty much. I mean, I know things can go against them if Australia absolutely annihilate Afghanistan, but they've got to get the job done against Sri Lanka. What sort of challenge will that be? Well,
firstly, they will have the advantage that Australia play Afghanistan tomorrow night in Adelaide.
Yep.
So they'll know. Say Australia win. I think some of their players are just getting through the fitness. Finch was training yesterday. Stoinis is fit. So they're getting through that. They'll probably play their best side. If they win well, England will know the exact equation. You have to win, and win by a certain amount of runs. But they've got a healthy lead at the moment. The challenge will actually be, again, the pitch. Because the game I'm doing tonight, South Africa, Pakistan, is on the same pitch that New Zealand beat Sri Lanka on a couple of nights ago. So that's a used pitch. So if they use that again tomorrow or Saturday, that will bring Sri Lanka into it, because with their spinners, 3 spinners, Dananjaya de Silva, Hasaranga and Tikshana. Those 3 spinners will be useful, and obviously their batters are used to batting on tired pitches. So if it's a fresh pitch, I really fancy England.
But it is clear, you just got to go and win the game. They've got that clarity and that knowledge, as you say, about the strike rate.
It is, but as Aaron Finch said the other day when he was kept getting asked about it on their side of it, you've got to try and win the game first. You can't go too hard, too early, and then you lose the game. Run rate's irrelevant then. So get yourself in a position where you're going to win the game. And then, we've been in World Cups before, I was involved in one, where you just got to make sure that you get across the line. That's why I was mentioning in the very first game at Afghanistan, and someone was tweeting me, why are you waffling on about the strike rate and the net run rate, Nas? It's only the first game, but only the first game is just as important as only the last game, because the net run rate situation counts throughout, and you don't want to get to the last ball tomorrow night and go, oh, crikey, I wish we'd gone harder earlier in the tournament.
In terms of going harder, we've heard it from a lot of people, the coach and the captain, and we've certainly heard it from Moeen Ali saying we've got to go hard, we've got to take the handbrake off and go for it. We bat deep, that gives us confidence. But if it is a pitch like you suggest that's a little bit tired and you've got the spinners, are England historically good at adapting to those conditions? And can you go really hard when those conditions and those spinners are in operation?
Hold it,
well, look at this.
My plane's just
look
coming
at this.
in. Hold it.
Taxi for Hussain. He's off to the FCG in style. That's wicked. You want to be down on that yacht with them drinking Chardonnay, don't you? That's the other place you want to be.
Some of us are working tonight, not going drinking Chardonnay. What was your question before we were rudely interrupted?
It was a very long question, but basically how hard is it for England to go really hard in the top order if you've got like a tired-ish sort of pitch? And historically, have they done and adapted well in those conditions?
They have. It was a while ago in that World Cup in 2019. If you remember, everyone was saying, oh, someone might get 400, 500 in one of these games. Well, no, hold on. In England, it actually did a bit. And Owen Morgan's side actually adapted really well. In this one, the first game, Afghanistan, on a slightly dodgy pitch in Perth, they just got over the line. And then obviously Ireland, they didn't quite get it right. So it's not been easy for every side, but I think that's where the 7 batters, if you can't adapt with that batting lineup of those 7, then there's something wrong, because that's why I would play the 7 batters, because it just gives you the leeway. And Joss mentioned that on an interview with Michael Atherton at the end of the game, that they can go a bit earlier than other sides. That's the great bonus of having 7. Other sides, even India, have to just hold themselves back a bit. Pakistan, definitely, because they're worried about 20 overs being a long time for them. And that's why I think, if in doubt, I think Owen Morgan said it to you, you want to look down on an England side and know immediately what their message is. And he said in the first 2 games he would have been like, what is their message? He wants to look down on an England side and immediately see they are going for it, especially now we are in sort of knockout cricket, or very, very close to it.
Swap groups again, India squeezing past Bangladesh, and they had a bit of luck there with the rain and some of the decisions.
They did, yeah. I mean, they did have a bit of luck when that rain came, and it's part of this tournament. I'm afraid we could get some in Sydney in the next couple of days. They were going really, really well, Bangladesh. They got off to a flyer, and then you know how it is as a batter, the covers come on, and then you also start hoping as a side. You sort of, Bangladesh will be there like, come on, rain a little bit longer, we're ahead on Duckworth Lewis Stern, and you almost switch off that little 5 minutes, and before you know it, the umpires are saying you're right on, and then you look at the equation and you think, that's because they've switched it. When it was just Duckworth Lewis, for T20 cricket, that was well in the favour of the chasing side. And then it's Duckworth Lewis Stern. They've adjusted the calculations, which it sort of has figured in that 2020 cricket is too much favouring the chasing side. So by the time they got the recalculation, it wasn't that much in their favour. They nearly got there, they lost by 5, but India escaped through.
Umpires have an unenviable task sometimes, and there's some question mark as to whether they should have gone back out at all. Litton Das slipped over, had to get treatment on his wrist. It is very difficult for the umpires in this World Cup with the weather around.
It is. I did a game in Hobart where Zimbabwe played
South Africa, was it?
South Africa, and because they'd stayed out for Zimbabwe innings. They then went out for the South Africa innings, and really they should have come off. It had been reduced to 6-7 overs or something, and they should have come off. It was too wet. But because they were approaching the finishing line, they got to like 3-4 overs and it was chucking it down. They're looking, thinking it's dark, we don't know where the weather's coming from. Can we just get through another over? Then it got ridiculous and players were slipping all over the place. The Zimbabwe opening bowler fell over, the keeper fell over, Quinton de Kock fell over, and the umpires just said, we're off, and that the points were shared there. Then last night they're under massive pressure. That audience, India-Bangladesh game, that is a massive audience, and they are under pressure to get the game restarted. And you've just got to be fair with both sides. You know, I wasn't there, I was in my Sydney hotel, so I can't say how difficult the conditions were. But if in doubt, I would say try and get the players back on as quickly as you can.
Sticking with India, but switching to the women's side of things, the BCCI have announced that the female cricketers are going to be paid the match fee the same as the males. So Virat Kohli et al. How do you see that?
I think it's a great starting point. You know, it's a no-brainer for Indian cricket, the money that is in Indian cricket. I think it's absolutely right thing to do. If you want one side in world sport to invest in, I would say invest in the Indian women's cricket side, because A, they've got a very good side at the moment, as we saw in the summer in England. B, with a upcoming IPL very soon, women's IPL, that's only going to get better and better. And as we see with the men's side and the population and the interest and the growth, that is going to be, you know, the sleeping giants that were Indian women's cricket have definitely been awoken. So, is that word, awoken?
Yeah,
awakened.
I think
awoken.
People know what you mean.
Okay, they're awake anyway, more than I am. But
the viewers aren't awake listening to this.
So anyway, they're a very good side. Our cameraman's now snoring.
He's fallen asleep. I think we should probably leave it there. So Nasser's down at the SCG tonight, and we'll be down in a couple of days to see England's game with Sri Lanka. And it's going to rain, you're going to be delayed and all that sort of stuff. See you next time.